This house isn't just yours anymore. It's ours, Marla declared, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. My heart sank as I watched the smug expression spread across her face, her words shattering the peace Eli and I had fought so hard to create. What do you mean? Ours? Eli demanded, his brow furrowed in confusion. We built this home for our retirement, not for you and Nathan to move in. Marla's laugh was cold and condescending. Oh, please. You didn't honestly think we'd let you two enjoy this place all to yourselves, did you? She gestured around the spacious living room, her gaze lingering on the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the pristine backyard. This is the perfect place for us to start our family. I exchanged a worried glance with Eli, my stomach twisting into knots. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. We had spent years planning and saving for this moment, envisioning a quiet, peaceful retirement surrounded by nature, far away from the chaos of the city. But here was Marla, barging in and declaring our sanctuary as her own. Marla, we've discussed this, Nathan interjected, his voice strained. Mom and Dad don't want us living here. It's their home. And what's yours is mine, remember? Marla shot back, her eyes narrowing. Or did you forget that little detail? Nathan wilted under her gaze, and my heart broke for him. I had always known Marla was bad news, but I had never imagined she would stoop to such levels of manipulation. Eli stepped forward, his jaw set in determination. Marla, you have no right to make demands like this. This is our home, and we will not let you take it from us. Oh, Eli, Marla said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You're getting old, and you know it. You and Renee won't be able to keep up with this place for much longer. You'll need our help. My blood boiled at her words. I had spent my entire life caring for others, and I wasn't about to let some entitled brat treat me like a helpless old woman. We don't need your help, Marla, I said, my voice firm, and we certainly don't need your constant disrespect and demands. Marla's eyes flashed dangerously. We'll see about that, she hissed. This house is ours now, and there's nothing you can do about it. As she stormed out of the room, dragging a reluctant Nathan behind her, I felt a surge of determination rise within me. Marla had crossed a line, and I was done being a doormat. It was time to take action and reclaim our lives. I stared out the window, watching the sun dip below the trees that lined our backyard. It was a peaceful sight, one that should have filled me with a sense of contentment and happiness. But instead, all I felt was a growing sense of dread. Mom, can we talk? Nathan's voice startled me out of my thoughts, and I turned to see him standing in the doorway, his face etched with worry. Of course, honey, I said, gesturing for him to come in. What's on your mind? Nathan hesitated, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for the right words. It's Marla, he said finally. I don't know what to do. I suppressed a sigh, trying to keep my emotions in check. What has she done now? Nathan shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. It's not just one thing, Mom. It's everything. She's demanding, manipulative, and she treats you and Dad like dirt. I know, sweetie, I said, reaching out to take his hand. Believe me, I've seen it too. Then why do we put up with it? Nathan asked, his voice rising in frustration. Why do we let her walk all over us like this? I paused, considering my words carefully. You know, when you first brought Marla home, I was so excited for you. I thought she was the one, the woman who would make you happy and complete our family. Nathan's face fell, and I could see the shame and regret in his eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have listened to you and Dad. You tried to warn me, but I was too stubborn to see the truth. It's not your fault, Nathan, I said, giving his hand a gentle squeeze. Marla is a master manipulator, and she's had years to sink her claws into you. But enough is enough. What do you mean? Nathan asked, his brow furrowed in confusion. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. Your father and I have been talking, and we've decided that we can't let Marla continue to disrupt our lives. It's time to take a stand. Nathan's eyes widened in surprise. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I admitted, but I'm not going to let her ruin our retirement. We worked too hard for this, and she's not going to take it away from us. Nathan nodded slowly, his expression a mix of fear and determination. Whatever you decide, Mom, I'll support you. I'm done with Marla's games, too. As we embraced, I felt a sense of resolve wash over me. Marla had pushed us too far, and it was time to push back. I didn't know how it would end, But I knew one thing for certain. Our family was stronger than her, and we would find a way to reclaim our peace. I can't believe the nerve of that woman, Eli exclaimed, pacing back and forth across the living room. She's gone too far this time. I nodded in agreement, unable to hide my own anger. I know, honey. Marla's demands have gotten completely out of control. Out of control? Eli stopped in his tracks, his eyes blazing. That's an understatement. Do you know what she did today? I shook my head, dreading the answer. She came to me with a stack of bills and demanded that we pay them, Eli said, his hands clenched into fists. She said that since we're all family now, we should be sharing expenses. What? I gasped, my jaw dropping in disbelief. She can't expect us to pay her bills. That's not even the worst part, Eli continued, his voice growing louder. When I told her we couldn't afford to take on her debt, she threatened to kick us out of our own home. She wouldn't dare, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. Oh, she dared. All right, Eli said, his voice dripping with contempt. She said that since she and Nathan are paying the mortgage, they have a right to do whatever they want with the house. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Marla had always been manipulative and demanding, but this was a new low, even for her. That's it, I said, my voice shaking with anger. I'm done playing nice with her. It's time to put an end to this madness once and for all. Eli nodded, his expression grim. I couldn't agree more. We've been pushovers for too long, and it's only emboldened her. What are we going to do? I asked, my mind racing. I have an idea, Eli said, a glint of determination in his eyes. We're going to call a family meeting and lay all our cards on the table. We're going to expose Marla for the manipulative, conniving woman she is, and we're going to make it clear that we won't tolerate her behavior any longer. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I considered Eli's words. It was a risky move, but I knew he was right. We couldn't continue to let Marla walk all over us. It was time to take a stand. Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. Let's do it. Let's call everyone together and put an end to this once and for all. As we made our plans, I could feel a sense of resolve building within me. Marla had pushed us too far, and we were finally ready to push back. It was time to reclaim our lives and our home, no matter what it took. What do you mean you're taking the master bedroom? I demanded, my voice rising in disbelief. Marla simply shrugged, her face a mask of indifference. It's the biggest room in the house, and it has the best view. Nathan and I deserve to have it. I could feel my blood pressure rising, my hands balling into fists at my sides. This is our home, Marla. We built it for our retirement, and we get to decide who stays where. Oh, please, Marla scoffed. You're just a couple of old people who are going to need our help to take care of this place. The least you could do is give us the best room. How dare you? Eli roared, stepping forward with fury in his eyes. We've worked our entire lives to afford this house, and you have no right to come in here and make demands like this. Marla turned to face him, her expression cold and calculating. You forget that Nathan and I are paying the mortgage now. That means we have a say in how things are run around here. I felt my heart sink as I realized the implications of her words. She was trying to take control of our home, using Nathan's financial support as leverage. That's not how this works, Marla, I said, my voice shaking with anger. This is our house, not yours. We decide who stays where, and we're not giving up the master bedroom to you. Marla's eyes narrowed, and I could see the fury building behind them. Fine, she spat. Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when you can't keep up with the maintenance on this place. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry, Nathan said, his voice trembling with shame and regret. I never meant for things to get this far. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. It's not your fault, Nathan. Marla is the one who is pushing us to this point. But I should have done something sooner, Nathan insisted. I should have seen what she was doing and put a stop to it. Eli placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his expression one of understanding. It's not too late, son. We can still put an end to this. Nathan looked up at him, his eyes filled with uncertainty. How? Marla is never going to back down. She thinks she has the upper hand. I stepped forward, my mind made up. Then we'll have to take the upper hand back, I said, my voice firm with resolve. It's time we showed Marla that she doesn't control us or our home. Eli nodded in agreement. Your mother's right, Nathan. We've been too passive for too long. It's time to take action and reclaim our lives. As we began to discuss our plan, I could feel a sense of determination growing within me. Marla had pushed us too far and we were finally ready to push back. It was time to take a stand, no matter the consequences. Are you sure about this? Nathan asked, his voice laced with uncertainty. Once we start down this path, there's no turning back. I exchanged a glance with Eli, my resolve unwavering. We're sure, honey. Marla has left us no choice. Nathan nodded slowly, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. Okay then, let's do it. As we began to lay out our plan, I could feel a sense of anticipation building within me. We were finally taking back control, and I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at the strength of our family. We'll start by gathering evidence, Eli said, his voice low and serious. Everything Marla has done, from the financial manipulation to the emotional abuse, we need to document it all. I nodded in agreement. And we need to be discreet about it. We can't let Marla catch wind of what we're doing. Nathan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I don't know how much help I'll be, he said, his voice laced with guilt. Marla has kept me in the dark about so much. That's okay, son, Eli reassured him. We'll work together to uncover the truth. The important thing is that we present a united front. As the days passed, we began to gather evidence of Marla's misdeeds. Bank statements, emails, and even recordings of her outbursts, everything we could find to expose her true nature. Look at this, Eli said one evening, shoving a stack of papers across the table. She's been draining Nathan's accounts for years, using his money to fund her lavish lifestyle. I shook my head in disgust, anger, and betrayal coursing through me. How could she do this to her own husband? Nathan's face was pale, his eyes haunted. I never knew, he whispered. I trusted her completely. That's how she operates, I said, placing a comforting hand on his arm. She manipulates and deceives until she gets what she wants. As we continued to piece together the puzzle of Marla's deceit, I could feel a sense of dread settling in my stomach. We were uncovering a level of betrayal and manipulation that went beyond anything I could have imagined. We have to stop her, I said, my voice firm with determination. No matter what it takes, we can't let her continue to control us like this. Eli and Nathan nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with the same resolve that burned within me. We were a family, and we would fight for our freedom together. As we solidified our plan, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. We were finally taking a stand, and I knew that no matter what happened, we would emerge stronger and more united than ever before. What is all this? Marla demanded, her eyes narrowing as she swept her gaze across the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation. Sit down, Marla. We have something to discuss. Marla's lips curled into a sneer, but she complied, sinking into the armchair with a defiant air. Well, let's get this over with. We know what you've been doing, Eli said, his voice heavy with accusation. We've seen the evidence. Marla's eyes widened, but she quickly regained her composure. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with us, Marla, I spat. We know about the money you've been stealing from Nathan, the lies you've told, and the ways you've been trying to manipulate us. Marla's face contorted with rage. How dare you accuse me of such things? We have proof, Marla, Nathan said, his voice shaking with emotion. Bank statements, recordings, everything we need to expose you for who you really are. Marla's eyes darted around the room, her mind racing. You're all delusional, she hissed. This is some kind of sick game you're playing. It's not a game, Marla, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of her betrayal. We know the truth, and we're not going to let you continue to control us like this. Marla sprang to her feet, her hands balled into fists. You can't do this to me, she screamed. I'm your family. You were never family, Eli said, his voice cold and hard. You're a parasite who latched onto our son and tried to suck us dry. Marla's eyes flashed with fury, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. But then she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You win. No, Marla, I said, my heart heavy with sadness and anger. We all lose. We lose the trust we had in you, the family we thought we could be, but we're not going to let you take anything else from us." Marla stared at me, her eyes filled with a mix of rage and fear. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You think you've won, but I'll make sure you pay for this." With that, she turned and stormed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. "It's done," Eli said, his voice tinged with relief. "She knows we're on to her now." I nodded, feeling a sense of weight lift from my shoulders. "Yes, but this is just the beginning. We need to take steps to protect ourselves from her retaliation." Nathan nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "I'll start the divorce proceedings immediately, and we'll make sure she has no legal claim to this house or any of our assets." As we began to discuss the next steps, I felt a sense of hope blooming within me. We had faced down Marla's deceit and emerged victorious. It wouldn't be easy, but we were finally on the path to reclaiming our lives. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," Marla shrieked, her voice echoing through the living room. Nathan stood firm, his eyes filled with a resolve I had never seen before. "It's over, Marla. I'm filing for divorce." Marla's face contorted with fury, and for a moment I thought she might lash out physically. "You can't leave me. We're meant to be together." "No, Marla," Nathan said, his voice heavy with sadness and regret. "We were never meant to be together. You manipulated me from the start, and I was too blind to see it." Marla's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally. "Renee, Eli, please, you have to talk some sense into him." I shook my head, my heart hardening against her pleas. "It's over, Marla. You've brought this on yourself." Marla turned back to Nathan, her eyes pleading. "Please, baby, don't do this. We can work things out, I promise." Nathan's expression remained resolute. "It's too late for promises, Marla. I've already started the proceedings, and I have all the evidence I need to ensure you don't get a penny from me." Marla's face twisted into a mask of pure hatred. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "All of you. I'll make sure you pay for this betrayal." "We're not the ones who betrayed anyone, Marla," I said, my voice heavy with the weight of her actions. "You betrayed us, our trust, our family, everything." Marla's eyes flashed with fury, but she seemed to deflate, realizing the futility of her situation. "Fine," she spat. "Have it your way. But don't come crawling back to me when you realize what a mistake you've made." With that, she turned and stormed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. "It's done," Nathan said, his voice tinged with relief and sadness. "She knows it's over." I nodded, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "You did the right thing, honey. I'm proud of you." Eli stepped forward, his expression one of grim determination. "This isn't over, though. We need to take steps to protect ourselves from any retaliation." Nathan nodded. "I've already started the legal proceedings, and I'll make sure she has no claim to any of our assets or this house." As we began to discuss the next steps, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure washing over me. We had faced down Marla's manipulation and deceit, and we had emerged victorious. It had been a long and difficult road, but we were finally on the path to reclaiming our lives. "Please, Renee," Marla pleaded, her eyes brimming with tears. "You have to talk to Nathan. He's making a terrible mistake." I stared at her, unmoved by her theatrics. "Nathan has made his decision, Marla, and it's the right one." Marla's face contorted with rage. "How can you say that? We're family. You're supposed to support us." I shook my head, my heart hardening against her manipulation. "You were never family, Marla. You were a parasite who tried to suck us dry." Marla recoiled as if I had slapped her. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "We can work through this. I promise I'll change." "It's too late for promises," I said, my voice heavy with the weight of her betrayal. "You've had your chance, Marla, and you squandered it." Marla's eyes flashed with fury, and for a moment I thought she might lash out. But then she seemed to deflate, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "Fine," she spat. "Have it your way, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize what a mistake you've made." As she turned to leave, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief wash over me. We had finally cut ties with Marla, and now we could begin to heal and move on. "You handled that well," Eli said, stepping into the room. "I'm proud of you." I nodded, grateful for his support. "I'm just glad it's over. I never want to see her face again." Eli placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We'll make sure of that. Nathan has taken all the necessary legal steps to protect us." As the days passed, I could feel a sense of normalcy returning to our lives. Gone were the constant demands and manipulations of Marla, replaced by a newfound peace and harmony. Nathan, too, seemed to be healing. The weight of Marla's betrayal had been lifted, and I could see him rediscovering the joy and contentment that had been so elusive during their marriage. "Thank you," he said one evening as we sat on the back porch watching the sun dip below the trees, "for always being there for me, even when I couldn't see the truth." I smiled, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "You're our son, Nathan. We'll always be there for you, no matter what." As we sat together in the peaceful silence, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the journey we had been through. It had been difficult and painful, but we had emerged stronger and more united than ever before. "It's a new beginning for us," I said, my voice filled with hope. "A chance to start over and create the life we've always dreamed of." Eli nodded, his eyes shining with determination. "And this time, we'll do it on our terms. No more manipulation, no more demands, just peace and happiness." As the night fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, I felt a sense of contentment wash over me. We had faced down the darkness and emerged into the light, and I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family.
Families often have conflicts or financial problems, but there are also families who manage to stick together and make it through everyday life. It's pretty clear which one is happier, don't you think? My name is Michelle. I've been called an oddball since I was a child. I don't know what's different about me. I just know people say I'm different. Being called different isn't the problem. The real issue is being ignored by my own parents. This led to a lonely childhood for me. I've always been sensitive to people's emotions and can somehow understand what they're thinking. I don't know why I can do this. It's not like I can always see or feel it, but it's as natural to me as moving my hand or breathing. I found it strange and couldn't understand why others couldn't do the same. There was a time when I felt a bad vibe from a colleague my father brought home from work. I warned my mother to be careful with that person, but she didn't listen. Later on, that colleague tricked my father into signing a contract as a guarantor for a loan. Although my mother didn't take my advice, when my father stepped away from the table with his colleague, I told him, "Dad, something is telling me that the word joint is dangerous. I don't know what joint means, but please be careful." So my father hesitated and refused to sign as a joint guarantor. Thanks to that, when my father's colleague went bankrupt and couldn't repay the debt, my father was able to avoid taking on all the debt. Another day, when I was shopping with my mother, I felt a wave of discomfort coming from behind us. When I turned around, I felt this bad feeling coming from a man wearing sunglasses and a hat. I said, "Mom, let's take that side street." I grabbed my mother's hand and moved to the side street. My mother was confused and asked what was wrong, but just as we moved, we heard someone shout, "Thief," from the street we had been on. The man with the bad vibe had snatched a woman's purse and ran off. The woman fell and got hurt badly. If we hadn't moved to the side street, the man's target would have been my mother. Things like this happened often, and people started to think I was strange and mysterious. My parents began to avoid me, and I felt lonely and isolated. What seemed normal to me was not normal to others. I started keeping my thoughts to myself. I stopped expressing my feelings because I knew normal people don't feel what I feel. If I didn't say anything, they wouldn't think I was weird. I would just be like a normal kid. I have a sister, Julie, who's 4 years younger than me. Unlike me, Julie is a regular kid. As the years went by, I became more withdrawn, but Julie just got cuter and more charming. It was clear who everyone preferred. Our parents started to favor Julie over me. They would say, "Julie is such a lovely girl, but Michelle seems to be a bit on the darker side." They noticed I had become less odd lately but still thought I was different. What they called odd was me not talking about things only I could sense. It was my way of dealing with the world. I was tired of how this ability of mine was torturing me, so I tried hard to suppress it. I wondered if my attempts to hide myself and appear normal were making me seem abnormal, or if once labeled as the odd kid, that image just couldn't be erased. I grew up without much love from my parents. On the other hand, Julie received all the love, including what should have been mine. Julie, who was spoiled and pampered, sensed our parents being cold and distant toward me. She started to look down on me. "I don't like being around you. Your gloominess rubs off on me. I'm so cute, but your gloomy image brings me down." Julie started to insult me whenever she got the chance. Our parents lightly scolded Julie, but they never seriously tried to correct her. When I was in 8th grade and Julie was in 5th grade, she was scouted by a talent agency on the street. I knew it. It's because I'm cute. They said I could even appear on TV. Julie said, pleased with herself. She started dreaming big, and our parents didn't seem entirely against it. "You should calm down and think carefully." I sensed something shady about this. I spoke up, expressing the intuition that I had long suppressed because I didn't want Julie to get into trouble. Julie, who didn't know about my unique abilities, said, "What's your problem? Are you just jealous because you're not cute and nobody approached you? Don't say weird things and stop interfering with me." She seemed furious. Even my parents, who knew about my ability, either forgot about it or were too excited about Julie standing on the glamorous stage. They sided with Julie and criticized me. After that, I resolved to remain silent again. I told myself that there was nothing good in saying unnecessary things. One day, a student teacher came to my junior high school. He was a male college student who graduated from the school and wanted to be a physical education teacher. As he shared his dreams about education and gave a strong greeting, the teachers and students, especially the female students, were charmed. When he responded cheerfully to the girls' excited cheers, I sensed a dark aura from him. I had always vowed to hide my unique abilities, but seeing my classmates potentially in danger, I decided to break my self-imposed rule. I chose a teacher who seemed understanding and talked to her. "I know that this is sudden, but please believe me and help me," I said. The teacher was puzzled by my sudden request, but agreed to stake out a certain location after school, just as I asked. I didn't tell the teacher the details. I had no reason to think she would believe me. But the fact that she agreed to help without any explanation made me think she wasn't an ordinary person either. The next day, the school was in an uproar. The male student teacher was arrested for violating a public nuisance prevention ordinance. The location where the teacher staked out was near the girls' restroom. Within 10 minutes of starting the stakeout, the student teacher appeared, entered the girls' restroom, and installed a video camera. The teacher caught him in the act. Thanks to that, the female students were saved from being secretly filmed, and their dignity was protected. Meanwhile, my sister, who had joined the talent agency, was proudly telling everyone about it. But there were no real lessons or auditions. She only had to pay expensive membership and lesson fees. Then suddenly, the agency closed down, leaving an empty shell. In short, my sister was scammed. She cried and screamed, directing her anger at me. "It's all because you said weird things. My future is ruined, and it's all your fault." It didn't make any sense, but my sister seemed to truly believe it. Maybe that's the only way she could handle it. For me, it was a disaster and a nuisance. Our parents didn't say such unreasonable things, but their attitude became more distant toward me and more supportive of my sister. I ended up feeling lonely again as the odd one out. I was happy that I could help everyone at school, but I was terrified that my actions would corner me. That's when I received a call from the teacher who had listened to my story, asking me to come to the staff room. Worried that I would be labeled as strange again, I opened the door to the teacher's staff room. You knew something like that was going to happen, didn't you? The teacher asked me in a low voice without any preamble. Thinking there was no point in pretending, I gathered my courage and told the teacher about my mysterious power. I thought so. I know there are very few people like you, the teacher said. For the first time, someone showed understanding for my situation. The teacher said they knew someone with a power like mine, and that's why they could understand. Actually, that person is my aunt, and I've been listening to her stories for a long time. You must be worried about a lot of things because of your power. Maybe getting advice from someone who's been in your shoes will help clear your mind. Saying that, the teacher introduced me to the person. The person looked at me with kind eyes and said, "It's natural to be worried, but you don't need to suffer." I was drawn to their gentle yet deep eyes that seemed to see through everything. The person's name was Hannah, and she had the same kind of power as me. Since she was a child, she had experienced a lot of struggles in hiding herself throughout her life. The stories from my seniors who had gone through the same experiences helped me release my worries and doubts. From this day on, my interactions with Hannah began. I called Hannah my mentor, but she just gave a wry smile and said, "Please don't." Thanks to Hannah, or rather my mentor, I changed. I have been living my life quietly, trying to stay unnoticed. But as my awareness grew, I gradually began to live a normal life as an ordinary girl. However, since the incident with the talent agency, I haven't been able to reconcile with my sister. If anything, it feels like we're drifting apart. It's become normal for her not to talk to me, and when she does, it's just to complain or insult me for no reason. I often have no idea what triggers her mood switches. My power couldn't predict my sister's emotional changes either. Just because you got into college doesn't mean you're all that. It's not even that great of a school, and you're so happy-go-lucky, she would say. My sister, who had hoped to get into her top-choice high school, ended up at her second-choice school. Because of that, she got mad when I got into my first-choice college. It's not like I bragged to her. She just dismissed me because of her own frustrations. Our parents only tried to appease my upset sister and kept their distance from me, as if telling me to stay away from her. It seemed that my sister didn't like the fact that I had become brighter since meeting my mentor. To my sister, I had to be a dark and gloomy girl who was inferior to her. But my sister is really smart. It was surprising that she failed her high school entrance exams. Of course, she was filled with frustration and poured all of that into studying at her new high school. As a result, she was at the top of her class for all 4 years and got accepted into a prestigious national university on her first try. I got into the most difficult university. "Your college doesn't even come close to mine," she boasted. I lightly responded with, "That's true," to my satisfied sister, because I knew nothing good would come from getting too involved with her. However, my sister thought that my light reaction was belittling her accomplishments and unleashed a barrage of verbal abuse at me. Both my parents were at their wits' end with my sister, who couldn't be calmed down once she lost her temper. All they could do was watch nervously. They blamed me for causing the trouble and eventually ended up calling me a troublemaker. I wanted to argue back about who the real problem child was, but I always swallowed my words to avoid complicating things further. Setting aside my sister's issues, as I approached college graduation, I had to seriously confront my own career path. I was no longer as introverted as I used to be. I still struggled with socializing and had little confidence in building good relationships with others. My ability allowed me to detect people's negative emotions. Well, I could sense positive emotions too. It seemed people were more prone to negative ones, which made detecting such negativity painful for me. Throughout my school life, I was tormented by these swirling negative emotions and had come close to losing faith in people. Could someone like me really manage to work at a company? I decided to consult my mentor about this dilemma. I wanted to learn how she had overcome similar issues, as I was sure she had faced them as well. I have experienced the same worries as you. Maybe you should consider doing the kind of work I do, she suggested. My mentor used to work as a fortune teller and a counselor, helping people resolve their problems. She could use her abilities to their fullest extent and contribute to the world and people around her. Also, she was able to work freelance, which meant she didn't have to belong to any organization. This way, there were fewer chances of getting entangled in human relationships or being affected by other people's emotions. It's the perfect job for people like us, she said. Encouraged by my mentor, I decided to pursue the same line of work. She taught me everything from how to do the job to how to acquire clients. Nowadays, thanks to the internet, it's possible to work from home without any issues. When I told my parents and sister that I would not seek employment after graduation and work from home instead, they responded, "What's that? What kind of job is that? Seems so dumb. You'll be home all the time. At least make sure to do the housework. Can you even make a living doing that? How will you cover living expenses? Well, as long as you contribute to the household, do whatever you want." While I expected such a response from my parents, it made me feel a little lonely that they didn't support me more. I felt sad thinking about their demands for housework and money. My mood darkened, and so my life working from home began. At first, I didn't have any job requests and struggled day by day. But with my mentor's help, I gradually got the hang of it and started to make a living. For about a year, I couldn't contribute financially to the household, so I focused on doing the housework. My dad seemed unsatisfied, but my mom was relieved and kept him in check. After about a year, when I finally started contributing financially, my dad mocked me by saying, "Oh, finally you're able to earn some pocket change. Huh." But I could tell he was actually quite satisfied with the money. However, even though I was contributing, the amount of housework I had to do didn't decrease, and our lives remained unchanged. Then, after another 3 years, my sister graduated from college and secured a job at a foreign company. Unlike you, I'm an elite. You're just unemployed, living at the bottom of the barrel. It's so depressing to have you as a sister, she would say. My sister, who had successfully landed a job, started to belittle me for working from home. "What are you even doing working from home? That's just like playing. You're nothing more than a parasite living at home." At times she'd say, "It's really weird not to work outside. I'm working hard, earning everyone's respect, and now I've been promoted to team leader. My pay is going to increase, and I'm probably earning about 5 times more than you. There's no way a loser like you can earn that much." My sister, who was promoted to team leader after only a year and a half at the company, kept one-upping me and looking down on me. She boasted about her good salary, but hardly contributed any money to the household and didn't help with the chores at all. Laundry, cleaning, preparing meals, everything was dumped onto Mom and me. When I say Mom and me, Mom mostly left it to me, so I was basically doing everything. Whenever I said to her, "Julie, you should take care of yourself a little. You shouldn't just spend all your money on fun. You should contribute to the household too," she just dismissed me, saying, "You, the unemployed, can't handle the chores. I'm saving my money for my future." Our parents also just let her do what she pleased for some inexplicable reason. "Oh, it's Julie. It can't be helped." I was used to my current lifestyle, and it was a comfortable environment for me to work, so I wanted to keep it that way. But I was starting to consider how to take care of myself. Then came the bombshell announcement from my sister. Without any prior warning, both our parents and I were taken aback as she continued. "He's a real elite with an annual income." She sneered at me and added, "Marriage is just a pipe dream for someone unemployed like you, isn't it?" She said she would bring her boyfriend over next Sunday. With the rapid succession of sudden developments, Sunday came and we were still reeling. The man my sister brought along looked like a successful young man, impeccably dressed in a sharp suit. "Nice to meet you. My name is Jack," he said. "I would like to ask for your permission to marry Julie," Jack said, greeting us properly and showing good manners. "Isn't he wonderful?" "Just as I said, I'm going to be so happy with this man," Julie gushed. "So Jack, what do you do for a living?" Dad managed to ask, clearly impressed by Jack's presence. "Yes, I'm currently training at a company that my father knows," Jack replied. We were puzzled by the word training, and then Julie said gleefully, "His father is the president. He's training now to take over the presidency in the future." My sister seemed over the moon about becoming a future president's wife. Afterward, we had various conversations, and Jack left stylishly. There were a few things that made me raise an eyebrow during the conversation, but my parents were thrilled with a high-status man. However, I felt an inexplicable dark shadow from that seemingly refreshing and good-natured man, Jack. It was something only I could sense, so I didn't know how to explain it. I could no longer remain silent, fearing that marrying a man with hidden issues would make my sister unhappy. "Julie, you've only been dating him for less than 4 months. You might want to understand him a little more before deciding to get married," I cautioned, driven by a strong gut feeling. "Sis, he's an elite and a future CEO. You won't find anyone better than him." "Oh, I see. You're jealous, aren't you?" "You're bitter because you're comparing your life to my happy one. Poor jobless sis," she retorted. Even our parents got angry at me for interfering with Julie's happiness. "You're just unemployed, so at the very least, stop interfering with your sister's happiness," they said. It was clear that our parents were hoping to secure a comfortable old age by marrying Julie off to a wealthy man. Frustrated by my inability to effectively communicate my concern about the dark shadow I sensed looming over Julie, my head was spinning. In the meantime, the two got engaged, and a meeting between both families took place. Jack's parents, like him, carried an air of freshness about them, but I felt the same ominous cloud hidden behind them. However, I was unable to convey this danger to my overjoyed sister and parents. Before I knew it, the day of the wedding had arrived. The CEO of our company is attending today's reception. Can you comprehend how much I'm appreciated and anticipated in my company? I guess it's a kind of honor that a shut-in like you wouldn't understand, my sister said gleefully before leaving the house. She always included some derogatory words directed at me. At the wedding ceremony held at a hotel, the couple who pledged eternal love to each other entered the reception hall. Watching my sister, who was beaming with joy, I worried about how long this happiness would last. As my sister mentioned, the CEO made a keynote speech full of praise for her, which delighted her. Once the speeches were over, food and drinks were served to each table. There were all sorts of delicious-looking dishes, but I started to feel a sense of discomfort. Gradually, I realized that no dishes were being served in front of me. At first, I thought my meal was just late, but other tables were already serving drinks, appetizers, and so on, one after another. Clearly, something was off. Nothing was being delivered to me. People at the same table began to notice this oddity and started whispering among themselves. At that moment, my sister came over to me and whispered into my ear with laughter in her voice. We didn't prepare free meals for the unemployed. After all, it's such a waste to serve such food to a jobless person. You should just eat potato chips at home. Just leave your gift money and go home. This outrageous remark was spoken loudly in my ear, and my ears rang. Jack, sitting at the groom's table, was grinning and nodding. Even our parents, who at first seemed surprised, said, "Well, it's true. Michelle is jobless after all." I was first taken aback, then a wave of anger surged up within me. "I never thought you'd stoop this low, sis. Mom and Dad, this is unacceptable. How could you accept such rudeness?" My parents just scowled at me, never bothering to reprimand my sister. "Fine, I get it. I'm leaving, but don't come crying to me later," I said. "You sound like a sore loser," she shot back. Amidst the chaos of these unbelievable events, a man suddenly stood up. "Sorry to interrupt. I'm the groom's brother, Larry. My brother and parents are trash, but it seems the bride is even worse." "I can't take it anymore," said the man who introduced himself as Larry. He continued, "Dad, your company went bankrupt 5 months ago, didn't it? Pretending to still be a CEO is just a scheme to mooch off the bride and her family. Jack will never become a CEO. He's planning to leech off his wife while pretending otherwise. He's unemployed now." Larry's words caused a commotion among the guests, but my sister was the most heated. "What do you mean you lied to me? What do you mean unemployed?" she demanded, her face turning from red to blue, her eyes welling up with tears. Our parents, their assumptions proven wrong, began to yell and curse. The anguished cries of my family echoed throughout the venue. The groom and his parents remained silent, looking sulky. Before the ceremony, I had received a confession and apology from Larry and asked him to speak his mind without reservation if something happened during the reception. As my sister was berating Jack with a wrathful face, another man couldn't take it anymore and stood up. It was the president of my sister's company. "Enough already. This is embarrassing. You have no right to criticize the groom. What do you think about your terrible attitude towards your own sister?" The president's angry voice made my sister's face contoured in fear. "For one, I didn't attend your wedding for your sake. I wouldn't have come if you weren't the sister." Suddenly, my name was mentioned by the president, and my sister's eyes widened in surprise. "Huh? Who are you talking about?" "Michelle is a goddess to many of us business owners, rescuing countless companies from the brink of collapse," he continued. "In fact, with the guidance of my mentor, I have been working as an advisor for corporate revitalization and growth. Starting with fortune-telling and life consultation, I used my abilities to show companies the path they should take. All my advice was spot on, and the companies that sought my help experienced a rapid resurgence in business, achieving a V-shaped recovery. As a result, I had earned titles like teacher and goddess. My sister's company had also consulted with me 5 months ago, and thanks to my advice, it had been reborn as a stronger enterprise. The president, grateful for my assistance, attended the wedding today as well. I had no idea you're not just a basement-dwelling unemployed nobody, are you?" My sister said, finally realizing the truth. Thanks to my thriving career, her assumptions had been shattered. "I now earn several times what you do." Despite contributing significantly to the household income, our parents never seemed to care about me. They thought that money was from Julie. "Oh, we thought Julie provided that money," they said, misunderstanding the situation. There was no way Julie would have been contributing money to the house. The wedding reception turned into a chaotic scene and was called off. Naturally, all the guests were fully refunded their wedding gifts. I've already signed a contract for an apartment under my name. I can't afford it on my own, especially now that he's unemployed. My sister sobbed. Jack retorted, "You're the one who signed the contract. I don't know anything about that." The wedding was a complete disaster resulting from my sister's malice towards others. She may argue there were reasons for her behavior, but they didn't hold up. Afterward, Julie divorced Jack and claimed alimony. Since Jack was jobless and his parents didn't have much, she couldn't receive much alimony. She barely managed to pay for the wedding venue, let alone the apartment she had contracted. The place that was supposed to be their love nest was never occupied and was canceled. However, the debt didn't simply vanish, and Julie found herself heavily burdened by loans. Moreover, her outrageous behavior at the wedding quickly became known among her colleagues, leading to a rapid decline in her reputation. The CEO had no choice but to demote her. With no place left in the company and having lost her pride as an elite, Julie wanted to quit and run away, but she had to bear the embarrassment for the sake of loan repayment. She continued with a trivial job in a hardly noticeable basement storage room. Jack and his parents, who had failed in their plan to leech off Julie, were now scraping by with occasional day labor. Naturally, Jack's elder brother, Larry, had cut off all ties with his parents and brother. The parents quickly gave up on Julie when she hit rock bottom and tried to cozy up to me instead. To them, I said, "I've had enough of being manipulated by you. I'm cutting ties. Goodbye forever." I declared this and moved out to start a new life in a newly rented apartment. They took in the fallen Julie, who was struggling to make ends meet. Julie's salary was drastically reduced, and she couldn't possibly contribute to the household expenses. Of course, I stopped the money I was contributing to the house as well. Without my financial help and unable to lower their standard of living, our parents quickly became exhausted and struggled every day to make ends meet. They were panting and stressed, trying to maintain the lifestyle they had grown used to, but without the necessary income, it became a daily challenge. On the other hand, my work was thriving. I was able to guide many companies and individuals in the right direction, using my abilities to help them succeed. My reputation grew, and more clients sought my advice. This success brought me a sense of fulfillment and financial stability. It felt good to finally be appreciated for my skills, and to see the positive impact I was making on others' lives. After the wedding incident, I started dating Larry. He had been so honest and brave during that chaotic time, and we grew close. He recently proposed to me, and I accepted. If everything goes well, marriage could be in our future. Larry is a man of pure heart, with no dark shadows lurking within him, unlike the people my sister had surrounded herself with. Larry was genuine and kind. I'm looking forward to building a happy life with Larry. Together, we dream of a future filled with love, mutual respect, and understanding. With him by my side, I feel a sense of hope and excitement for what lies ahead. We've talked about our plans, our dreams, and how we want to support each other in everything we do. As I reflect on everything that has happened, I feel a mix of emotions. I am relieved to have cut ties with my parents and sister, who never appreciated me. I am proud of the person I have become, despite the challenges I faced, and I'm grateful for Larry, who has brought light and love into my life. Looking forward, I see a bright future. I am excited about the possibility of marriage with Larry and the life we will build together. With him, I know I will never have to hide who I am or feel unappreciated. Our love and partnership are based on honesty and mutual support, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily. I wish to share my awful stepmother story, whom I will call Julie. I would never call her anything else due to her motherly attitude. She never acted like one and never wanted to try. My dad's name is Jacob, and I met Julie when he introduced her to me. Hey, Emily, I want you to meet Julie. She told me never to call her my mom. I complained for you to even think that she could be your mom. You are only my husband's daughter, accept your reality. You are a teenager, and I do not wish to do anything for you. I replied, that is okay, Julie. I can handle myself. I just wish for my dad to be happy. I will not bother you. She shot back, you're already in the way, you little witch. Don't try to act smart with me. I know how to handle worthless teens like you. Once you turn 17, I'll make sure you're out of our lives so I can have Jacob all to myself. The conversation got nasty really fast. Julie said some horrible things about me and my late mother. My dad was a widower, and my mom passed away when I was just 7 years old. I miss her a lot, and it took my dad a long time to start dating again. That's one reason why I never told him about Julie's terrible words or behavior. Looking back, it was a big mistake to stay quiet because Julie became a nightmare after she married my dad. Even my dad was surprised by her behavior. Julie always targeted me and tried her best to kick me out of the house. She made it clear that she hated kids and didn't want me around. She never told my dad this before they started dating. When my dad refused to abandon me, she began to find ways to make my life miserable. She would ruin her own food and blame it on me. She'd say, look at what your daughter did, Jacob. She spoiled my cooking because I refused to cook for her. She's going to poison me one day. Then my dad would ask, Emily, what's your explanation for this? Dad, I swear I don't know anything about this. I'm happy to cook my own food. I wasn't even home before you came back. I got takeout to eat in my room, I said, trying to explain. Julie interrupted, oh God, she's lying, Jacob. You need to get rid of her before she kills me. This was just one example of what Julie had been doing for the past 5 years. This whole mess was over too much salt in her food, which she had added herself just to blame me. It was crazy, but Dad believed me because I had enough proof over the years. She did much worse. She cut off my phone connection, locked me out of the house for 8 hours, took my car keys on the day of an important test, and even threw away a project I had worked on for a week. Dad tried his best to make Julie understand that her actions were not okay, but she never listened. She would act nice for a few days, and then do something terrible again. By the time Julie had been with us for a year, I got a job and started paying for my own things. I wanted to avoid any interference from her in my life. Dad was upset, but I told him it was good for me to have my own money. I didn't want him to feel guilty. Julie, being a stay-at-home wife, considered Dad's money as her own and didn't want to spend much on me, not even for basic needs. I tried to stay out of her way as much as possible, hoping she'd leave me alone. But she never got the hint and kept bothering me. She was determined to get rid of me from her life and the house, but she had no idea what was coming. The big drama happened a few weeks after my 17th birthday. Since then, Julie had been in a great mood, often singing happily around the house. I knew why she was so cheerful. She thought she could finally get rid of me. Little did she know, I had overheard her talking to her friend on the phone about how she planned to kick me out. I was aware of her plan, but she had no idea what was coming for her. One day, I came home from work and saw my stuff packed in my room. Instead of being upset, I was amused. I said, "Hey Julie, why is my stuff packed and waiting in my room? Are we going on vacation? Don't act so smart, Emily." "I hope you remember my words," she snapped back. "I told you that once you turn 17, I would make you leave. Well, now it's time for you to go." I've decided to be nice, and pack your things to make it easier for you. You want to kick me out of my house?" I asked. "Oh no, Emily. This is my house, and I don't need to keep you here anymore. I'll deal with Jacob later, but you are definitely leaving." Julie had a smug look on her face. She was happy with herself, already thinking about what to do with my room. But I said, "Not so fast, Julie. Karma is coming for you." I calmly took some papers from my bag and gave them to her. She looked confused, so I smirked and said, "I think you should look at these papers first, Julie. I've been meaning to give them to you for a while. It's good you mentioned eviction today. It reminded me of these documents." "What are these papers? Why do I need to read them?" she asked. "Why don't you take a look and find out?" I replied. Julie sat down and started to read the papers I had given her. At first, she looked confused. Then her face changed to shock and disbelief. She looked at me, then back at the papers. Her expression turned angry. "Is this an eviction notice in my name?" "What the hell, Emily, what does this mean?" she asked. "It means I want you out of my house in a month. You know, the usual thing an eviction notice means," I said. "You can't serve me eviction papers. You can't do that. This is my house, and I'm the only one who can kick people out," she yelled. No, Julie. This is my house and always has been. My dad was just a caretaker who held it for me until I turned 17. Now that I'm 17, the house is mine. I recently finished the paperwork," I explained. No, that's impossible. Jacob can't just give you this house. This is our marital property, and he can't give it to you without asking me," she protested. "How is this marital property, Julie? Dad had this house long before you were around. I guess he didn't tell you that it belonged to my maternal grandparents. They left it to me and had Dad take care of it until I was old enough," I said. "I turned 17 just a few weeks ago." No, you must be lying to me. This can't be true. You're trying to scam me and kick me out of the house. Wait till your father hears about this. He will kick you out instead," Julie yelled. She made the mistake of calling my father downstairs, forgetting she never asked him if she could kick me out. Even if the house belonged to him, she should have asked. She knew he would say no, so she tried to do it behind his back. In her rush, she forgot this detail and decided to involve Dad. I wasn't complaining. It was better for me this way. Dad came downstairs to see what all the yelling was about. He said, "Whoa, calm down, Julie. Why are you screaming like that? What's wrong?" "Why wouldn't I be screaming? Your daughter is making wild claims again. She says this house belongs to her, and she's kicking me out," Julie shouted. Dad turned to me and asked, "Emily, what is going on? I need to know the truth." I knew Dad would ask for my side. He's a good father and knows his wife can be very mean. He always listens to both sides before taking action, which Julie hated. She wanted him to always side with her no matter who was right. They fought about this a lot, but Dad wanted to be fair to everyone. That's why he asked for my side too. I explained. Julie called me down and said she was kicking me out. She told me I couldn't stay in her house anymore. I knew she was planning this because I overheard her talking on the phone. So I decided to kick her out instead. I gave her an eviction notice. Dad was shocked and turned to Julie. "What the hell, Julie? Who gave you permission to try and kick my daughter out? You never discussed this with me. Why am I hearing about this now?" Julie realized she had made a mistake. She was so upset by the eviction notice that she forgot she'd be caught. I saw her panic for a moment, then she turned hostile and defensive like she always does. She snapped, "Your daughter is already an adult, Jacob. She turned 17, and we let her stay in the house for a month without paying rent. Most parents kick their kids out when they turn 17. We need to make Emily learn to live on her own and become responsible. That's for me to decide, Julie. You are not and never have been her parent. You didn't even help with anything related to Emily. How did you think it was okay to decide when to kick out my daughter? Dad said. You were being unfair, Jacob. All these years, I put up with your favoritism because Emily was a teenager. But now she needs to go. I won't let her stay in my house anymore. Who said this is your house? Which deed shows this house? Is in your name. Well, it's your place, so I have equal rights to it. Since I am your wife, this is my house too. I won't allow Emily here anymore. She needs to go. This is not your house, and even if it was, you have no right to it. This is Emily's house, and it's in her name. Julie went pale when she heard that. She didn't expect my dad to agree with me and say the house belonged to me. She lived in her own world where everything was hers just because she said so. Hearing otherwise was a big shock for her. She started to cry and said, "Why would you say such a thing, Jacob?" Because the house belongs to Emily. I'm just telling the truth. What's wrong with that? You gave Emily the house without talking to me. How could you do this, Jacob? I'm your wife. You should have discussed this with me. I am not okay with this. You had no problem going behind my back and trying to kick my daughter out. Why can't I do the same, Julie? Talk about double standards. There was nothing to discuss. This house was always meant for Emily. I was just the trustee who took care of it until she turned 17. The house was transferred to her name recently. Julie finally understood that we were telling the truth. Dad even offered to show her the papers if she needed proof. She was in too much shock to say anything coherent. She just said, "You deceived me, Jacob. I thought the house was yours. You lied to me. This is not fair." I never lied to you, Julie. You never asked whose house this was. When we got married, we signed a prenup that said our personal assets stay personal. Oh my God, this can't be true. You should have told me, Jacob. Now Emily is throwing us out. Look at how ungrateful your daughter is, Jacob. I'm not throwing you out, Julie. That's just for you. You won't get to live in my house anymore. I might have let you stay, but after you tried to kick me out, I changed my mind. You're the one who has to leave. If you kick me out, your dad will follow too. We're a couple. He won't leave his wife. My father laughed out loud. He had been thinking about leaving Julie for a while, but he wasn't sure. Today made the decision easy for him. He said, "Actually, no, Julie. I'm not following you. I will stay here and take care of my daughter. I've been thinking about divorce for a while, and what you did today sealed the deal. I'll be filing tomorrow. Be ready for it." Wait, are you going to divorce me? You want to leave me for your daughter? You can't do that. Yes, I can, Julie. Did you think I'd forgive you for tormenting my daughter for 4 years? Absolutely not. I thought you might change, but I see now you'll always be toxic. I don't want someone like that in my or my daughter's life. Julie stepped back as if she had been hurt. She never expected a divorce so soon. My dad is usually a quiet man who doesn't do anything drastic. This was very unlike him. He was mad, and you could see it on his face. He didn't shout, but his tone showed how angry he was. This made Julie even more anxious. She started arguing with my dad, and I decided to leave them and go to my room. Dad and Julie fought for an hour, with Julie shouting and crying while my father calmly explained his reasons. After the argument, Dad came to my room. He seemed a bit sad and wouldn't look me in the eye. He sat down and said, "Emily, I know I need to apologize to you." "I'm sorry, dear." I should have done a better job of protecting you from Julie. I thought being fair and avoiding fights would make things better. I was wrong and made things worse for you. You have to apologize. Dad, I know you loved Julie, and she wasn't like this when you married her. People change, and it can take time to understand these changes. Wow, you've really grown up. I wish I had handled things differently. I brought a mad woman into our lives. Well, what's done is done. I forgive you, Dad. You tried your best, and I'm not upset. Do you really want to divorce Julie? I won't be mad if you don't. I would understand. Girl, I'm not living with that crazy woman anymore. I'm done. Her true colors shocked me too much to act sooner. I don't want her in my life anymore. I had a feeling something was wrong with Julie, which is why I made the prep. I was worried she'd mess up your future and cause money problems, so I thought this was the best way. See, you did think about me too. You deserve to be happy, Dad. That's all I want. If Julie doesn't mean anything to you anymore, it's best to separate. I spent a lot of time assuring my dad that he was not a bad parent. He did a lot for me, and I needed to make him believe that too. I won't lie, I was super happy that my dad was finally getting rid of that crazy woman Julie. She wasn't the right person for him and shouldn't stay married to him after everything she did over the years. The talk with my dad went well, and he went to the guest room to sleep that night. I finally felt peaceful knowing that Julie would soon be out of our lives for good. It felt great to teach her a lesson. I hope she would remember this for the rest of her life. The real surprise came the next morning when I found Julie acting way too nice and caring towards me. She was in the kitchen making me breakfast and acting like I was the most important person to her. Even Dad was giving her a strange look and looked at me with confusion. When breakfast was over, I said, "Thanks for breakfast, Julie, but you don't have to do this anymore. I can make my own food as I have for the last 7 years. No need to change things all of a sudden." What nonsense, Emily. I'm happy to do this for you. Eating together can bring us closer as a family, she replied. What's the point? We won't be a family much longer. You should have done this years ago. It's too late now. Oh, come on, Jacob. Don't be so hard on me. I'm trying. I can make this work. I'll start being a better parent to Emily. We'll be the best mother-daughter duo ever, right, Emily? I knew what Julie was trying to do. She was cornered and spent the night coming up with a plan. I knew better than to trust her. Looking at Dad, I could see he wasn't going to trust her either. He just looked a bit amused. Since Julie was waiting for my response, I said, I don't think so, Julie. First of all, I'm 17 and don't need a new parent. I pay my own bills and will be off to college soon. Secondly, you are not and will never be my mother. That word doesn't suit you at all. Emily, I'm sorry for being so mean to you before. You need to give people a chance. We could be a happy family if you just give me a chance. It will also help strengthen my marriage with your dad. Dad replied, Julie, you have a few months left of this marriage. I don't know what you're trying to strengthen. If it's an attempt to stay in this house, I'm sorry to say it won't work. You're being kicked out, and I'm going to divorce you anyway. The damage is already done. There's no point in trying to act all innocent and sorry now. I know you better than that, Julie. She saw that her new plan wasn't working, and it seemed like she had run out of options. Julie couldn't threaten to ruin Dad financially because of the prenup she had signed when they got married. She had no leverage left. Her only remaining tactic was to beg and cry, hoping for some sympathy. She started crying hysterically, pleading with me not to kick her out. She begged me to talk to Dad and ask him to give her another chance. She then turned to Dad, begging him to be more forgiving and to reconsider his decision to divorce her. The entire day turned into a long, painful ordeal with Julie begging and pleading for mercy. Since both Dad and I were off work that day, we had no choice but to endure her desperate attempts to change our minds. She followed us around the house, tears streaming down her face and her voice trembling with desperation. Dad had to step out for a while to contact his lawyer and start the divorce process. Julie's pleas continued even when Dad was gone as she tried to convince me to intervene on her behalf. When Dad returned, he was visibly tired of the drama. He informed Julie that he had already taken steps to file for divorce. Julie's face went pale when she heard this. She realized that her attempts to sway us were futile. The next few days were filled with more of Julie's emotional breakdowns. She would alternate between crying and trying to put on a cheerful face, hoping to win us over with kindness, but it was too late for that. Within a week, Julie received the divorce papers. Dad's lawyer had them delivered to her, and her reaction was a mix of shock and resignation. The realization that her marriage was over seemed to hit her hard. She stopped her begging and crying after receiving the papers, understanding that her efforts were in vain. The cold reality of her situation started to set in. Dad and I sat her down and explained that she would need to find a job if she wanted to have a place to live and afford a lawyer for her divorce proceedings. Julie, still clinging to the hope that she could somehow fix things, promised she would find a way to support herself. She was convinced that she could change our minds if she tried hard enough. She kept saying that she would prove herself and make things right, but we both knew it was too late. As the days passed, Julie's presence in the house became more and more unbearable. She would try to engage in conversations, acting as if nothing had happened. But it was clear that neither Dad nor I wanted to have anything to do with her anymore. The tension in the house was palpable, and every interaction with her felt forced and uncomfortable. Finally, the month came to an end, and Julie was still holding on to the hope that we would let her stay. She kept her belongings packed, waiting for a last-minute change of heart from us. But when the time came, there was no reprieve. We had been clear about our intentions from the start, and now it was time to follow through. Julie was given a firm deadline to leave the house. Dad and I stood by watching as she gathered her things. She tried one last time to plead with us, her eyes filled with tears and desperation, but we remained steadfast. Julie's belongings were taken out, and she was escorted out of the house. She looked back at us one last time, hoping for a sign of mercy, but there was none. As the door closed behind her, a wave of relief washed over me. The house felt lighter, freer, without the constant tension and negativity that Julie brought. Dad and I shared a moment of quiet understanding, knowing that this was the right decision. We had endured enough, and now it was time to move forward, leaving Julie and her manipulations behind. She made a fuss when we told her to leave, but after Dad threatened her with more legal trouble, she left crying. I heard she moved in with a friend because her own family doesn't want her around anymore. When she left, she took all the negativity with her, and the house finally felt like home again. It's been more than 3 years since all this happened. I'm now in college, which is conveniently close to home. Dad successfully divorced Julie and has started dating again. He says he's not looking to settle down, but just wants some companionship from time to time. Life at home has been peaceful since Julie left, and Dad and I have grown closer. We often laugh about the drama that once filled our lives and how much better things are now. As for Julie, the last I heard, she moved into a small flat with several roommates. She's struggling to make ends meet because she doesn't have many skills or qualifications. Julie is working a minimum wage job and is just barely getting by. She's living a very different life from the one she tried to control in our house. I saw her from a distance at a grocery store a few months ago. She looked worn out and seemed to have aged a lot. Her hair was messy, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She looked nothing like the confident woman who tried to take over our lives. It was clear that life had taken its toll on her, and she was no longer the powerful person she once pretended to be. Seeing her like that made me realize that karma had caught up with her. She tried to manipulate us and take control, but in the end, she ended up with nothing. I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief, knowing that she was no longer a part of our lives and that we were finally free from her negativity. The house, once filled with tension and arguments, now felt warm and welcoming. My dad and I have been able to move on with our lives. We often talk about how much better things are now and how grateful we are to have each other. Dad has even started taking up new hobbies like gardening and cooking, things he never had time for when Julie was around. We've created a peaceful and happy home, one that is full of love and laughter. Julie's departure has been a blessing for both of us and has allowed us to rebuild our lives and focus on what truly matters. We no longer have to deal with her constant drama and manipulation. Instead, we've been able to enjoy the simple pleasures of life, like spending time together and making new memories. As for Julie, I hope she has learned from her mistakes. Life has not been easy for her, and I believe that she has finally realized that you can't build happiness on lies and deceit. The last time I heard anything about her, she was still struggling to make ends meet and living a very difficult life. She's working hard to survive, and I think she has finally understood the consequences of her actions. I don't wish anything bad on her. I hope that she can find a way to turn her life around and learn to live with honesty and integrity. Perhaps the struggles she's facing now will teach her valuable lessons and help her become a better person in the end. Everyone deserves a chance to change and improve their lives. Looking back, I'm grateful for the challenges we faced. They made us stronger and brought us closer together. My dad and I have become a great team, and we've learned to appreciate each other even more. We've built a life filled with love, respect, and understanding, and for that, I am truly thankful. Julie's story serves as a reminder that trying to hurt others and take what isn't yours will only lead to your own downfall. It's important to live a life of kindness, honesty, and respect for others. I hope Julie has found some peace in her new life and has learned from the mistakes she made. As for us, we are happier than ever, and we know that no matter what challenges come our way, we can face them together with strength and love. Naturally, I inquired why he had made a family card of his in-laws, as well, to which James chuckled and replied, "Because they are my family." They must have one family card, right? Got a problem with that, he added. You wouldn't have anything to say if you knew who helped you when no one was there. His strong tone took me off guard, and I had never heard that from him. Was James always like this? He said, "If you are grateful, then do better with my family. Then you will be family to me. In a sense, you are in some kind of trial period until then." I had never heard of a trial period in marriage. James went on, seeing I was quiet. In other words, you're not fully part of the family yet. If you don't like it, you can leave any time. For now, our family is just the 6 of us. I was shocked. After that, I immediately canceled all our joint credit cards and moved out. My name is Polly Cook, 30 years old. I'm a freelance illustrator. I used to work as a designer for a big advertising agency, but started on my own 5 years ago when I got married. Now I work from home. My parents died in an accident when I was young. I was raised by my maternal grandparents, but moved back to my parents' apartment near the city center for college. I've been living there ever since. I met my husband James at an Italian restaurant where he worked. It was a nice place with reasonable prices and good food, so my colleagues and I often went there. That's when James, the handsome waiter, became a topic of conversation. Indeed, he was good-looking. The manager once joked that a lot of the regulars came just to see James, and I could see why. I won't deny that I became one of James's fans because I thought he was really cool. He really stood out for some reason. We quickly became closer, and soon people were calling us a couple. Surprisingly, we ended up getting married. I don't remember much about that time. It's almost like I was in a daze. When I snapped out of it, I was married to a man I was calling my husband. But I loved James then and was happy when we got married. I quit my job as a designer at the company and started working independently. It was a friendly departure, and I continued the same kind of work, but on my own. James kept his job at the Italian restaurant, working different hours, sometimes late into the night. It became hard to work as usual, and I had always wanted to work independently, so I decided to go for it. It's a good idea, Polly. It'll be easier for you. And it's great to keep doing what you love. James supported my decision. That's how our life as newlyweds began. We both didn't care for flashy things, so we decided not to have a wedding ceremony and just officially registered our marriage. We met each other's families briefly, and that was it. James went to work, and I worked from home and did the household chores. Our schedules were irregular, but we kept in touch and waited to have meals together when we were both home. It was a happy, simple life, and I thought, marriage is nice. But about a year after we got married, everything fell apart. My family wants to come over. Is that okay? James asked one day. Of course, I said it was fine. I had only met and briefly talked to James's family at our initial meeting, so I thought this was a good chance to get to know them better. Having lost my parents at a young age, I always admired James's large family. But when his family of 5 arrived, I was left speechless. Hey, which room is mine? His sister asked as soon as she walked into our house. James's sister, who is 35 years old and 3 years older than both James and me, worked at a local supermarket. I was shocked by her rude behavior, so different from the polite greeting she gave me when we first met. James's 22-year-old sister was also there, but she was quiet and just stood there without saying a word. I remember she barely spoke when we first met. Hurried by James's sister, I showed the 2 sisters to the guest room and James's parents to the room that used to be my parents' room. It was the only Japanese-style room in the apartment, so I thought it would be best for them. After settling into their rooms, James's sister announced, "Well, since we're going to be living here together, you better start serving our family properly." I was confused by what she meant, but when I looked at James for help, he just laughed in a way I had never seen before. It turned out his family had given up their own home and moved into my apartment without telling me. Sorry, our family home suddenly had to be vacated, and they had nowhere to go, he explained. I wish he had told me earlier. I had thought it was just for a day or 3, and this was really inconvenient. When I mentioned this to James, trying not to upset him, he looked down and apologized. Please, just until they find somewhere else to go, he pleaded. I couldn't say no. How could I turn away people in need, especially the family of someone important to me, without even a place to go? I reluctantly agreed to live together on the condition that they find a new place as soon as possible. But I would come to regret this decision. James's family showed no restraint. All 4 of them, from the day they moved in, did nothing and left everything to me, saying whatever they wanted. They made no effort to look for a house or a job. When I asked about their jobs, I was in for another surprise. Oh, I quit that lousy supermarket job, she had said. She was employed, but apparently it was just part-time work. I had thought she worked full-time because of her age, but she told me she hadn't had a steady job since high school. James's parents also had part-time jobs, which they quit before coming here. And of course, James's other sister was unemployed. She had claimed she was a student, but that was not true. "Why should I work when I've become part of a wealthy family?" she asked. When I asked who she was talking about, I got another shocking reply. "You, of course. You got a big settlement and insurance money from your parents' accident, and you don't even have a mortgage on this apartment. You can live without working," James's sister said, laughing. I complained to James when he got home, but he yelled in a way I had never seen before. "Everyone's tired from suddenly having to leave their home. Let them rest for a while, or do you want to kick out my family, Polly?" Stunned, I froze. Then James suddenly softened his tone. "Sorry for yelling. I'm having a tough day too. Can you just be a little more patient?" Looking back, James was skilled at manipulating situations with a mix of kindness and harshness. But at that moment, I didn't see it and agreed to endure a bit longer. The tyranny of James's family got worse. They treated me like a servant at home and demanded money when going out. "We can't job hunt without a penny, can we?" "It's fine, but if we can't find work, we'll just keep living here," they said. I reluctantly gave them some money, which they claimed to have spent without finding jobs. They probably never looked for work, but if I said that, they would accuse me of lying without proof, and James's whole family would blame me for hours. Telling James didn't solve the problem. Everyone's frustrated about not finding jobs. "Sorry, just bear with it a little longer. I'll talk to them," James said, trying to smooth things over. But as time went on, I felt like saying anything was pointless. However, the frequency of them asking for money gradually decreased, perhaps because James said something, so the issue seemed to resolve itself. Of course, the money I had given them was never returned. Then after about 2 months of living this way, I noticed something alarming. Why is the credit card bill so high? Could it be unauthorized use? When I quickly checked the credit card statement, all the charges were made with family credit cards. The purchases included food, drinks, books, games, and even expensive brand bags and clothes. Each item was labeled with a number from 1 to 6, showing that 6 family credit cards had been issued. These credit cards were in my name, with James using the family cards. "It seems like you'd be better at handling this, and it's more convenient to consolidate payments, right? Can I leave it to you?" He had said, and I ended up managing them. But it turned out these family cards had been issued without me knowing. James's family stopped asking for money because they could now make credit card payments and cash withdrawals. When I confronted James about why he made family cards for his in-laws without asking me, he laughed and said, "Well, you complain when they say they have no money, so what choice do I have? Besides, you know who took you in when you were all alone, right? Can you really say such things to the important family of your benefactor?" I was stunned into silence by his bold tone, unlike anything I had heard before. Was James always like this? "If you're grateful, you should serve my family more. Then I'll acknowledge you as family too. Until then, consider it like you're on a trial period," he continued. I had never heard of a trial period in marriage. Seeing my silence, James pressed further. "This means you're not yet an official family member. If you don't like it, you can leave any time. Right now, it's just the 5 of us in our family. Useless parasites get out." That's when I realized James's true nature. I felt as if all the blood had drained from my body. Shocked, I considered divorcing James. In fact, I began to wonder why I had married James in the first place. Initially, I just thought he was a handsome guy. Like the other girls, I was just excited about him being handsome without any particular reason. Then one time, when I went to the restroom, James approached me. "You seem different from other people, Polly." I don't know, kind of mystical. Sorry, it's not something I should say to a customer. I was surprised but kept listening, and I gradually started to pay more attention to James. Maybe that was his plan, to make me like him. When I think about it calmly, it makes sense. I remember once when James came to our table for small talk, a colleague jokingly said I was a wealthy lady living alone in a condo. It was right after that he started talking to me, probably because he was interested in my wealth and the condo. Honestly, James wasn't really my type. To put it nicely, he was modern. To put it bluntly, he seemed a bit frivolous. I liked mature men who spoke quietly and seriously. But somehow, I ended up falling for James. I always found that strange since James was the typical handsome guy, and it must have been easy for him to charm a woman, especially someone like me who was new to the workforce and not used to men. I fell for his tactics and ended up marrying him. This thought made me feel so frustrated and embarrassed. I felt like destroying everything in the house, but I wasn't foolish enough to act on that impulse. Instead, I decided to get revenge. To do that, I needed to endure this life a little longer, just like James manipulated me. I planned to control his entire family. The condo we live in was bought by my father with a mortgage soon after I was born. It wasn't very expensive back then, but the area developed rapidly with a new shopping center nearby, and now it's considered a luxury condo. My parents, hoping for more children, bought a spacious condo. That's why there's enough room even with James's family moving in. But even with its decent size, having James's family around is a nuisance for me, especially working from home. I'm enduring this only for the sake of revenge. As James' sister said, there's no mortgage payment for this condo. When I was 4, both of my parents died in a car accident. They were coming back from my paternal grandfather's funeral when they collided with a speeding car on the freeway. That day, I was supposed to go with my parents, but I caught the flu that's going around and had a high fever. So my maternal grandparents came to the condo where we lived with my parents to take care of me, leaving me as the only one who survived. The mortgage payments were covered by the group credit life insurance, so the only housing costs I pay are the management fees and property taxes. James, seeing the amount, said he would contribute just a bit more than that to our household expenses. There's no mortgage, so if I put in that much, we should manage with Polly's income, right? We'll each use our own earnings for personal expenses. Sounds good, doesn't it? I agreed, thinking maybe he was right. Until then, I had been paying for everything by myself, so I thought his contribution would lighten my load. Looking back, it was foolish, but at the time, I was blinded by my love for James and just went along with whatever he said. James probably thinks he's the head of the household and the one supporting me, which is why he can so easily call me a parasite. But in reality, it's different. I pay for most of the expenses like utilities, food, social expenses, and entertainment. Now 5 real parasites had been added to my household, making it impossible to manage with just that amount. I wanted to get rid of them as soon as possible, but I pretended not to notice and endured. I gritted my teeth and let James's family freely shop, reminding myself that I'll be the one laughing in the end. Then 5 months after deciding to divorce, the date of act finally came. I'm tired. Please decide. It's either me or your family, I told James, presenting him with a final decision. He was surprised, but I continued without concern. None of your family members lift a finger to help around the house. They just dump all their chores on me. You know I work from home. I'm not just playing around. Yet they treat me like a freeloader and tell me to know my place since you're supporting me. I've had enough, I cried. I confronted James. He smirked at me and said, "Then you should leave." Didn't I tell you before? You're not really part of this family yet. Giving up like this means you didn't earn your place in the family." I acted shocked as I looked at him. "What are you surprised about? If you can't live with my family, then you're the one who has to leave. Oh, and since I'm not at fault, I'll take this apartment as alimony, and I'll take half of your savings as part of the property division." Ah, so that was his plan all along. That's why his whole family kept harassing me, trying to drive me out. I knew it, but hearing it said outright was still a shock. It was someone I once loved and even married. But thanks to this, I made up my mind. "Fine," I said, deciding to divorce James. "But this condo is mine, and I'm not at fault either." "What did you say?" James seemed shocked that I outright rejected his proposal, not expecting such a response. It made sense as I had always complied with his demands since our marriage. Thinking back on it made me angry. "I don't want to spend another second with you all, so I'll leave now, but you should also prepare to leave." "It's a joke, right? This is our home. We won't leave." "Ever heard of residential rights? You can't just force people out who live here," James shouted. Ignoring his ranting, I left the house and went to my grandparents' place. I explained everything and asked if I could stay until things were settled. My grandparents were shocked to learn what I had gone through and scolded me for not consulting them earlier. With tears in their eyes, I apologized. "Grandma, Grandpa, I'm sorry for worrying you, but I'll be okay now." "I look fragile, but I'm not really," I said, forcing a laugh with tears in my eyes. The day after I left the apartment, James contacted me right away. "Hey, what's this all about?" "What are you referring to?" I asked about the certified mail. I was impressed by how quickly things were moving. I had handed the divorce proceedings over to a lawyer, and when I told them yesterday that I was leaving the house, they arranged for everything to be sorted out today. "I'm not paying any alimony, and I'm not leaving the condo," James declared. But legally, he had an obligation to pay, and he didn't have the right to continue living in that apartment. "What are you talking about? That apartment is mine too since we're married. If you insist, then pay me half its value to buy me out," he said. Such an absurd claim. Talking like this is getting us nowhere. "Please communicate through my lawyer from now on," I said, ending the call. I knew he would probably call again tomorrow, but I had no desire to talk anymore that day. As expected, he called the next morning. "Hey, what's this all about?" He repeated the same line as yesterday, showing no creativity. "What are you referring to?" "The card's not working. What did you do?" "What I did was cancel it. That card was mine, and you were just using the family card, remember?" Indeed, before leaving the house, I had switched all the contracts from that card to another and canceled it. Of course, the family cards would stop working when I canceled mine. I was the one paying for it. Yes, you paid the apartment's management fee and property taxes just for the first 4 months. It's not much, but I can deduct that from the alimony if you like. I mocked him. I heard some indistinct shouting from the other end of the phone. That's right. James only paid the agreed amount for just 4 months. He made various excuses about the store and whatnot, always finding a reason to ask me to wait. But then he stopped paying altogether. If he forgot and thought he was still paying, that's some poor memory. But I didn't care anymore. He's someone I'm cutting ties with. His memory doesn't matter to me. That's the situation, so please pay your half of the living expenses I've been covering. I've kept a detailed record of our household expenses, which I'll use as evidence to fairly divide our savings. It's marital property, he demanded. Yes, I understand. Let's split it accordingly, I agreed. He ended the call with a reminder not to forget. A few days later, I got another call from him using the same line. I realized they lacked not only memory, but also vocabulary. What do you mean by the split of shared property? Why is it 0? You must be rolling in cash from your parents' insurance and alimony, he said. Ah, so that's what they were thinking. I patiently explained that my savings before marriage weren't part of the shared property, and since we had no savings after marriage, it naturally amounted to 0. Don't lie to me. If you think I'm lying, why don't you consult with someone? From now on, please communicate through my attorney. I won't be speaking to you directly anymore. Goodbye, I said, then hung up the phone and blocked James's number. 1 month after I left the house, James and his family finally moved out of the apartment. Not because they had a change of heart, but because they couldn't sustain their lifestyle. Naturally, James's income alone wasn't enough for a family of 5. They were used to shopping extravagantly with my card. Telling them to cut back now was impossible. I had let them use the card intentionally, knowing it would come to this. His family started pestering James for shopping money, and when he refused, they began stealing from his wallet. Even when James got angry, they blamed him for kicking me out. To top it off, the electricity, gas, and water were all shut off. Of course, I had arranged for that since I didn't plan to live there for a while. James tried to get the utilities restored immediately by phone, but the house was in my name, so no one else could reconnect them if the owner had stopped them. During the hot summer and early fall, his family couldn't handle the extreme heat and eventually left the condo. Where they went, I neither know nor care. James tried to stay until the end, but he eventually gave up because there was no electricity and he couldn't bathe. The divorce proceedings went faster than expected, not because James had a change of heart, but because he made mistakes. He cheated on me while we were still married, or rather he started making moves on someone thinking he could kick me out soon. He boasted about owning a luxury apartment in a prime location downtown, using it to attract young girls. It's surprising he did this while his family was around, but he had a history of such behavior, so they didn't mind. Before leaving, I had installed cameras in several places in the house, which captured all the evidence. Maybe he underestimated me, but he really did disrespect me. He brought his family into my home without my permission, made a family card, left me the bill, kicked me out, and cheated on me. I demanded a hefty sum in alimony for all these. When James saw the amount, he turned pale and desperately pleaded for reconciliation. But I had no such intentions. Knowing he couldn't pay, I made him borrow as much as possible from his company and took whatever I could get. When I threatened to sue him for fraud over the family card, he reluctantly agreed to my terms. Well, I hope he does his best to pay off his debt. The divorce is finalized, and I'm still staying at my grandparents' place. I haven't decided what to do with the apartment yet. I might sell it. I treasured it because my parents left it to me, but since they passed away when I was very young, and I have no memories of them, plus all this has happened, I think they'd understand if I let it go. My work as an illustrator is picking up. I might live alone again, but it's a good time for that. I can work just fine staying at my grandparents'. I'll depend on them a little longer, then move forward with strength. Next time, I won't be fooled by a man who's only good-looking. I hope to find a partner I can share my life with. Today marks a significant chapter in my life as I stand in the comfort of my own home, surrounded by its walls that hold countless memories. Jack, with a beam of pride illuminating his face, welcomes me with open arms. His gestures mirror his joy as he explores the spacious room with an enthusiasm that's almost infectious. We find ourselves in the heart of my family's abode, a place where my father's dreams took shape. Blessed with considerable wealth, my father poured his heart and soul into this home, transforming it into a masterpiece valued at an astonishing $100 million. This house stands as a testament to his dedication and passion, a legacy he entrusted to me before his departure from this world. Now, as I navigate through life without him, my husband asserts his claim over this cherished inheritance, suggesting that what was once solely mine should now be recognized as ours. Despite my insistence on its significance to me and me alone, he remains undeterred, armed with a smirk and unwavering confidence. Yet I hold on to proof, evidence that underscores my rightful ownership, documents bearing my name, Sarah, as the sole heir. At 42, my life is intertwined with the digital realm thanks to my role at an online bank. This career path wasn't chosen at random, but was influenced by the values instilled in me by my parents. With their expertise in financial management, they taught me the importance of fiscal responsibility, lessons that have stayed with me into adulthood. Growing up in affluence, they ensured that I understood the value of money, urging me to appreciate and conserve it. Despite our financial standing, my upbringing was marked by modesty. My allowance hardly surpassed those of my peers, and lavish dining was an exception, not the norm. My education was rooted in the community, attending a local public school over an exclusive private institution. Yet rumors of our family's wealth spread, painting a picture of a life filled with luxury and endless indulgences. Sarah, with your massive house and wealth, life must be a breeze, right? You must have all the latest gadgets and games. Can we come over to play? Such questions were commonplace, yet they couldn't be further from the truth. My reality was far from the opulence many imagined. Despite not having the most expensive toys or the newest theme consoles, the assumption was that I lived a life of extravagance. I often found myself at the center of unwelcome attention, with peers perceiving my family's financial status as an opportunity for their gain. "Sarah, you're wealthy, aren't you? Could you lend me some money?" Such inquiries made me uncomfortable, highlighting a stark contrast between the perceived notion of my lifestyle and the values my parents worked hard to instill in me. In a twist of fate, I found myself in a tricky situation when I accidentally damaged Maria's gaming console. At the moment, my pockets were empty, and the timing couldn't have been worse. Around the same time, Julie and I had just started our journey as fifth-grade classmates. She questioned whether I had shared this dilemma with my parents, but the fear of their disappointment sealed my lips. "I can't tell them. They might get upset. That's why I'm turning to you, Sarah," she confessed. The thought of saying no weighed heavily on me, fearing it might lead to an uncomfortable atmosphere at school. However, my parents' firm stance on not lending money left me with no choice but to apologize to Julie for my inability to help financially. My refusal left Julie in tears, and it wasn't long before whispers began to spread. Accusations were thrown my way, questioning my reluctance to aid a friend in need, given my family's financial stability. I found myself entangled in a situation that I had no part in creating, steadfastly explaining that my hands were tied due to a lack of funds. Amidst this, Maria chimed in with a judgment that stung, suggesting that I valued money over friendship. The situation escalated as Maria and Julie wove a web of lies around me, claiming I had borrowed money without repaying and refused to cover the cost of the broken console. The school's faculty soon untangled the truth, reprimanding Maria and Julie for their actions. Unfortunately, their warnings only fueled the fire, and the rumors spread like wildfire, eventually reaching my parents. In response, my father took it upon himself to address the matter, leading to a meeting with the involved families. Despite receiving half-hearted apologies, I chose to keep my distance from Maria and Julie thereafter, enduring their occasional mocking glances, but no direct confrontation. That evening, over dinner, my father offered a piece of advice that I would carry with me for years. With a reassuring smile, he reminded me of the importance of standing firm in my decisions, especially regarding financial matters. Sarah, always remember, it's okay to say no. You don't have to disclose whether you have money. If someone persists, just say you'll need to ask your parents, even though you know it's not permitted. This lesson on navigating financial disputes with grace and firmness became a cornerstone of my approach to friendships and financial interactions. As I moved on from elementary school and later graduated from university, I became more cautious about whom I invited into my personal space, focusing on building relationships grounded in character rather than material wealth. My career post-university was marked by a deliberate effort to steer clear of financial entanglements, dedicating my energy to my work and maintaining a private personal life. This experience taught me the value of boundaries, both in friendships and finances, shaping the person I've become today. At the age of 35, I crossed paths with Jack, who would later become my partner in life. Our meeting was orchestrated by a mutual friend, and despite Jack being a year my junior, his sincere and buoyant spirit quickly won me over. His candor was a breath of fresh air, and it wasn't long before our casual dating blossomed into a serious relationship. 2 years down the line, we celebrated our union with a vibrant wedding ceremony, much to the delight of my parents, who warmly embraced Jack into our family. About a month into our marriage, my father, perhaps sensing the depth of our bond, proposed the idea of having Jack over at our place. Although I had full confidence in Jack, I harbored some reservations about his penchant for conversation, fearing he might inadvertently divulge sensitive family information. However, emboldened by a month of marital bliss, I decided it was time Jack knew everything about my background. Thus, I extended an invitation to him to visit my parents' home. Jack's reaction upon stepping into my family's residence was one of sheer astonishment. His awe was palpable, a clear indication that the reality of my family situation had taken him by surprise. The visit, although warm, left Jack with an insatiable curiosity about our financial standing, a topic broached repeatedly during our journey home. My own knowledge on the specifics of our family wealth was vague, yet Jack's inquiries stirred a sense of unease within me. A few months into our marriage, I received a distressing call from my mother informing me that my father was to be hospitalized. The news came as a shock, further compounded by the revelation of his recent health struggles, which until then had gone unnoticed by me. Reflecting on our last visit, I recalled my father's diminished appetite and frail appearance, which now filled me with regret and concern. Accompanying my mother to the hospital that Saturday, I was greeted by my father's attempt at cheerfulness, though his somber mood was unmistakable. His apology for what he perceived as a burden to us underscored his gentle nature. The subsequent diagnosis of advanced pancreatic cancer, with its spread beyond the possibility of surgical intervention, left us in a state of disbelief and sorrow. The notion that someone as health-conscious as my father could fall victim to such a cruel fate was beyond our comprehension. In the aftermath of the diagnosis, my father's resolve was touching. He expressed a desire for our happiness, a sentiment that moved us to tears. Resolved to cherish every moment with him, I found myself restricted by hospital protocol, which limited visits to immediate family members. My father's longing for the presence of friends and the creation of joyful memories at our home was a poignant reminder of the life he wished for us. Determined to honor his wishes, I pledged to uphold the legacy of our home as a place of warmth and joy, even in his absence. The promise to cherish our family home became a testament to my father's enduring spirit and the deep bonds that tied us together. Driven by a desire to fulfill my father's dream, I decided to renovate our family home, a project that became my solace and focus during a challenging time. Jack, ever attentive, expressed concern over how much time I devoted to my father in his final days, oblivious to the complexities surrounding our family estate that I had kept from him. When Jack inquired about my father's health, I confided in him about the difficult journey we were facing, finding some comfort in his support despite the whirlwind of work, hospital visits, and the emotional toll it was taking on me. However, tension surfaced when Jack's curiosity veered towards my father's finances and estate. His suggestions of involving legal advice to discuss financial matters, just in case something happened to my mother too, struck a nerve, dredging up painful memories. While my father had a trusted lawyer, Jack's insistence on being prudent about financial affairs began to create an emotional chasm between us. In the ensuing months, my father bravely fought his illness, but eventually passed away. The inheritance discussions that followed among family members led to me receiving a substantial house valued at $5.5 million. Jack's escalating interest in the inheritance, despite my attempts to keep him at bay, only intensified the strain. His excitement about moving into the big mansion and his intrusive questions about financial details took me by surprise, especially when I learned he had been informed by my cousin at the funeral. The cousin's offhanded remarks about the house being a waste if left empty only added to the tension. My explanations to Jack that the inheritance was not communal property seemed to fall on deaf ears, leading to an increase in hostility between us. Although he was present at my father's funeral, Jack distanced himself from the responsibilities and support needed during the subsequent memorial services and inheritance formalities. After some time, as life began to find its new normal, Jack revealed a shocking turn of events. He claimed to have changed the ownership of my family home into his name, presenting legal documents as evidence. This revelation not only breached the trust I had placed in him, but also signaled a profound misunderstanding of the boundaries and respect integral to our relationship. The complexity of navigating inheritance matters had unveiled deeper issues in our marriage, prompting a reevaluation of our values, trust, and the future direction of our partnership. The revelation from Jack left me reeling, struggling to comprehend his actions. He bluntly admitted his fatigue from our relationship, suggesting we could coexist as housemates in the family home, albeit with me receiving minimal financial support. His ultimatum of divorce if I resisted was a jarring twist to our already strained relationship. In a mix of shock and despair, I implored him to reconsider his sudden decision and the unauthorized change in property ownership. Jack disclosed that he had sought legal counsel to facilitate the ownership transfer without my consent. The situation escalated to the point where divorce seemed the only viable resolution. Heartbroken and disoriented, I began to distance myself from the home and life I shared with Jack, attributing his betrayal to the corrupting influence of potential wealth. The following day, Jack's demand for the house keys, claiming ownership of my ancestral home, pushed the situation into further turmoil. His attempts to forcefully enter the property were thwarted by the timely intervention of security personnel. I presented the authentic ownership documents to the guards, firmly establishing my rightful claim to the house and inheritance from my father. Jack, confronted with the undeniable proof of my ownership, was visibly shaken. His misunderstanding stemmed from a supposed legal advisor named Jerry, who had promised to navigate the complexities of inheritance law on his behalf. Entrusting Jerry with a significant sum of $360,000 to alter the property's registration, Jack had fallen victim to a deceitful scheme. In the midst of this confrontation, Jack's emotions surfaced as he repeatedly attempted to contact Jerry, only to be met with silence. His frustration boiled over, denouncing Jerry as a fraudster preying on those blinded by greed. Jack then directed his bitterness towards me, criticizing my expenditure on what he deemed frivolous, questioning my understanding of inheritance registration and associated costs. Despite his attempts to salvage our marriage, suggesting we reconsider the divorce, the breach of trust and the depth of his deception were insurmountable. I requested the security guard to escort him away, closing a painful chapter of my life. In the months that followed, reflection and distance allowed me to process the events, reinforcing the importance of trust and honesty in the foundation of any relationship. The ordeal with Jack, underscored by manipulation and betrayal, served as a poignant lesson in guarding against the allure of wealth at the expense of personal integrity and love. On the solemn occasion of my father's first memorial service, held at our family temple, Jack made an unexpected appearance. Since our divorce, life has not been kind to him. Jobless, entangled in financial woes, and seemingly betrayed by those he once trusted, Jack cut a forlorn figure. His disheveled state spoke volumes of his plight, standing in stark contrast to the respectful solemnity of the day. As he attempted to express his apologies amidst tears, his actions inadvertently shifted the focus away from the memorial, causing a stir among my relatives. Despite his emotional turmoil, I found myself compelled to ask him to leave, a request that ultimately necessitated intervention by security. This incident, happening during such a poignant moment, left me with mixed feelings. Eager to move forward and distance myself from the shadows of our shared past, I decided to relocate from my parents' home, a decision that had been in the works. I settled into a new abode, severing my connections with Jack, who, despite everything, continued to visit the family property, now transformed into a thriving rental villa. My mother and I embarked on this new venture together, managing the villa that blossomed into a vibrant place of joy and respite for many. Jack, on his end, appeared to have embarked on a path of self-improvement, securing a new job and earnestly pursuing a fresh start. The transformation of our family home into a rental villa not only honored my father's vision, but also became a haven for guests from diverse backgrounds. The villa, celebrated for its picturesque setting and expansive garden, quickly grew in popularity, hosting an array of events from intimate weddings to joyous family gatherings. Managing it alongside my mother deepened our bond and immersed us in a fulfilling journey of hospitality and service. In time, the success of the villa enabled us to enhance its offerings, introducing a swimming pool, an inviting outdoor lounge area, and a playful corner for children. Our dedication to creating a welcoming and memorable experience for our guests solidified the villa's status as a premier destination, drawing travelers in search of tranquility and unforgettable moments. This venture not only allowed us to realize my father's dream, but also provided a platform for creating cherished memories, echoing the warmth and hospitality that he had always envisioned for our home. While tending to the garden of our rental villa, a sense of profound satisfaction washed over me. The transformation of our family home into a haven where guests could gather, celebrate, and forge enduring memories filled me with pride. I could almost feel my father's pride in what we had achieved with his vision. This venture had not only turned his dream into reality, but also bestowed upon us financial stability and a newfound independence. The journey here taught me invaluable lessons about trust, money, and the resilience needed to carve out my own path distinct from the shadows of my past experiences. In this journey of self-discovery, I learned that adversity could indeed shape a more resilient and determined future. News about Jack reached me through mutual acquaintances, indicating he had managed to steer his life in a positive direction, securing a meaningful job and learning from his previous missteps. Jack's progress was a testament to the transformative power of confronting and overcoming personal challenges. Knowing he was doing well brought a sense of peace, affirming that both of us were on our respective paths toward healing and self-improvement. Ultimately, my father's dream served as a catalyst for growth, not just for my mother and me, but for everyone who crossed the threshold of the rental villa. It became a sanctuary where guests could experience joy and make memories to cherish for a lifetime. The success of the villa stands as a living legacy of my father's vision, constantly reminding us of the values of resilience, determination, and the profound impact of realizing one's dreams. Through this endeavor, we've created a space that extends beyond mere accommodation. It's a source of joy, a site for celebration, and a testament to the enduring spirit of dreaming big and working hard to make those dreams come true.